Hey everyone, Eric McLaughlin here, the Imperfect CPA, and you know what today it is book launch day. Today, my new book, Make Money Your Employee, is out today. Please go get it at Amazon.com. I hope that you will buy it and enjoy what I have to share with you about how you turn working for yourself or working for somebody else into making money work for you. This book was written for the everyday person. So it's not written for those who are already sophisticated in financial matters. It's really written for your everyday person, the person who thinks that they can't get beyond where they are. It's written for the person who thinks that all I'm going to be able to do is work this 9 to 5, whether it's McDonald's, Walmart, whether you're a person who works even at a company like a Coca-Cola or IBM, but you're saying, I'm just going to keep working, but never get to the next step of making money your employee. So I hope you'll pick up this book. I hope you'll see it as a call to action. And I want to hear your testimonies about how it's helped you as it helped me. And as you learn more about my story, about how I too, even in my late 40s, learned to put money to work. You all, I'm so excited today to have my mentor, my friend, my brother, Jerome Edmondson, with us in the studio today. Jerome is, you may not know this, he is the first Black Denny's franchise owners. And I know that some folks may be too young to know what Denny's is, but I'm so happy to have you in here, Jerome. Welcome to the show.
Eric, I'm excited to be here. And most importantly, I know your career path. You launched your business in our entrepreneur class.
Yes.
And for me to sit here today and to put author in front of your name, I always want my mentees and people like yourself in business, you got to leave a legacy. You got to leave it in writing. Dr. Miles Monroe taught me to put my gift on paper, and don't take this to the graveyard. And you've done your employees, you've done your clients, you've done the future of financial literacy and CPA a justice by making money your employee and you the author of this book. So hats off to you. Welcome to the world of authorship. You're here, and I'm so excited for you there. And so for me to be here with you today on book launch, on your book launch podcast, I'm honored.
And it means a lot to me, Jerome, for your kind words and even for you to share that, because I remember going through that class, what was it, in 2006, I believe. I went through the class, and, we as CPAs sometimes think that we know everything we need to know. We know how to set up companies. We know how to do financials and taxes and those kind of things. But in your class, I learned so many things. I know the podcast is not about that, but I think it's important for people to know the important role that you and Alina, your wife, played and what that class meant. Everything from changing the name, which is such a funny story, right? I had a partner at the time, BM, right. And I didn't know all that meant, but the importance of understanding, of putting my name out there and being willing to stand, just after I put my name on that book, and I have to stand behind that book. I have to stand behind my business, hiding behind anything else. The importance of learning how to price. Because before I came to your class, I was not pricing right at all. And that's why we weren't making any money. That's why I was struggling, among other things. But learning that and so many other principles, marketing and knowing who your customer is. I think the phrase that I always use is, if somebody doesn't want to do business with you, they're not your customer. And I remember you said that so long ago, and that's one of my favorite sayings. So I just appreciate you, brother. I really do, for all that you've poured into me and so many other entrepreneurs. You may not know, but even some of the work that's done with this design, my logo for Level Up, was done by one of your entrepreneurs, Lavon Lewis, who also came up with the logo for Eric McLaughlin LLC. So many things. John Schultz, another one of your graduates, helped me actually do my first year of podcasting. So just so many things, Jerome.
Awesome.
I'm so thankful for. But what I want to do is I do what most of my guests are on the show is we want to talk about money.
Sure.
We want to be transparent about things that we've learned so that other people in the audience can learn. So what I'd like you to do is, can you share first, and this basically can be 4 questions and may branch off from there, but can you share with the audience, like, What did you learn about money growing up?
Wow. I grew up with no money. You know, I grew up with a grandmother, no mother and father in the home. So financial. So my grandmother wasn't a Wall Street tycoon or a CPA in that day. But there was a saying called make do. All right. So we would chop cotton, and when we got our $20 that day, we would hand our $20 over to the bank, which was my grandmother.
Yeah.
My grandmother would give us a percentage of that money back, which was a couple of dollars for the next day for us to survive. And then she would save the rest of it for what we would need in the future, which would be school clothes and so forth. Wow. And so what I was learning at the time is that my grandmother was very financial literate.
Yeah.
Because she knew how to take that $20. She knew the kind of money that we needed for food and for lunch and so forth the next day. But she also knew that somewhere down the line that I'm going to need school clothes, we're going to need essentials, and she would save up all of our money in separate accounts. Stockings, socks. They weren't bank accounts. They were accounts in her room that was separate in a trunk that she kept all of our money separate.
How many of there?
There were seven of us.
There was seven
of us, and we would all entrusted her as our sixth grade education financial person to manage our financial affairs. Now, you know how I knew she was very successful at that, Eric? Because when my older brothers and sisters got to where they didn't want to go through that financial system, they always needed. They never had money.
Yeah.
They were always lacking.
Right.
But I always had money in grandma's bank.
Wow.
That became a habit as I grew older to understand that I had to set aside for the future, but at the same time, figure out how to manage my expenses of what I needed today and tomorrow.
So you've talked about saving. You talked about your grandmother taking some of the money and giving you some of the money. How did that go, though, Jerome? Because what were you then? Were you, 12 or 13?
Yeah, 13, 14 years of age.
So how did that go in terms of you managing? Like, were you a good manager of your money? What happened, like, if you ran out? Or how did that, just tell a little bit about how did that play out?
Well, I never, there came a time where I was making a lot of money. Let's just put there. You go through life and now it's abundance.
Yes.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I never really changed my grandmother's habit. Even though I had a lot of money, I used to have my, a financial advisor when I was in Detroit, my accountant in Detroit before you became a part of our financial team. She used to say that, look, Jerome, from a tax person, you got to spend money. You've got to do these different things, know. So I had to learn.
Yes.
I was imperfect in that area as well. So it was a learning curve for me, and then I had to continue to educate myself on that. I had to, I eventually went to school and studied finance to understand how money really works on interest and just, if I had all this money in the bank on the business, by the end of the year, why should I pay taxes on that when I can invest? So it was a lifelong journey, really understanding how finances work. And then after a while, you build such a great net worth for yourself, you begin to look at the future for my grandchildren, my children, and so forth. So it began to rough off into those areas.
Sure. And so you talked about your financial advisor or your accountant meeting with you back in Detroit. So this was after. Well, let's do it for a second. Can you run through like kind of how you got to the point of, you said that your grandmother helped you save up and those types of things. And then you said you went to a point of abundance. Can you talk about that journey a little bit? How did you get there?
Sure. Well, I took my savings habits to the military. Believe it or not, I used to send my check from the military to my grandmother.
Wow.
Because guess what? Grandma was better than I at doing that. But after a while in the military, I learned how to manage, and it was such a great, after the military, got out, started working in the restaurant industry. African-American menu, 500 stores nationwide with KFC, first Black Denny's franchise owner, recently first Black AT&T authorized dealer. So now, because of my financial habits and because of my disciplines, now you find that companies are entrusting me with their financial portfolios.
Sure.
So, because they're looking at your financial background, your financial information.
Sure.
So now I'm managing these different portfolios and managing P&Ls, understanding profit and loss statements.
Sure.
So again, I'm learning more about money.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, now I have a investment account, I have a savings account, I have all these different things. But at the same time, Eric, with those things come cars.
Yes.
Come houses.
Yes.
Come vacations.
Yes.
Come hanging out with the boys.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Come fishing. Come clothing.
Exactly.
And so now there's the law of attraction that, you're beginning to look at, well, I want to drive a car like that.
Exactly.
I want the S550 Mercedes-Benz. So you start to take risks.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you take those risks, Eric, things begin to happen.
Sure.
Things like that contract is no longer there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But you still got the S550.
Yeah.
You still got the new house.
Yeah.
You've made all these expenses, but all of a sudden your money is not there.
Yeah.
So what do you do now?
What do you do?
You violate. What do you do now?
Yeah.
You find yourself in trouble. I tell people that all have sinned and fallen short
Absolutely.
of a good credit score.
That's
all right.
Exactly.
And so what I found myself now, Eric, is that while my grandmother taught me those principles, I grew into my own financial principles, and they weren't working for me now. And now I'm in a financial bind. I'm in a situation. I can't get out. I'm the entrepreneur. I'm the person that everybody's looking up to. I'm I'm the Entrepreneur Development Network.
Exactly.
I'm teaching this stuff. So you mean to tell me the teacher can get into a financial bind?
Absolutely.
I mean, is it a such thing as a CPA having financial issues?
Absolutely. I mean, that's really why the show is called The Imperfect CPA. And I appreciate you sharing that, Jerome, because that's part of what I share. Like, when I had gone through your class in 2006, in 2002, I had declared bankruptcy because the bad decisions that I made a decision to leave from my good paying job at Southern Company to jump into becoming a CPA with no money in the bank and with a wife and newborn baby. And so everything was put at risk. Cars, house foreclosed on. So I was in a very tough place in 2006 when I went through that class. So it was actually really pivotal that I went through that class because it helped me turn the corner and relay a foundation and start to think about it. And I think that's really what people need to know too, is we can have these financial problems, my bankruptcy, my lack of money. But the question is, what do you do to start to come out of that? And so I would ask, like, what advice would you give to that person when you find yourself in that situation, right? I mean, I think there's plenty of folks in the audience who either say, I have lost my job, or I've lost a big client or customer. Like, what do you do?
Eric, what I really find, what I like about your show and your podcast and what I like about your conversation now is that everybody's got these great, I'm doing great things podcasts.
Yes.
But nobody is talking about the failure ratio.
Yes.
I've had my S550 repossessed.
Yes.
I've been in a restaurant with a friend and came back out and my car was gone.
Yes.
You follow what I'm saying? I've never had a home repossessed because if I had to walk to work, my family had to have a roof over their head. So you begin to put your priorities in order. And what you do is you always understand that performance is measured by the speed of recovery. You have to get to a point to where you have to recover.
Yeah.
There's only so many times you can lay your head on that pillow and cry.
Yes.
Mama ain't hearing it. You're married like I am.
Exactly.
The first thing is that the uncomfortable level in the home, the stress that comes with that, the high blood pressure that comes with that. And guess what? In a lot of cases, suicide.
Yes.
In a lot of cases, divorce.
Yes.
In a lot of cases, all these different things begin to happen because of decisions you made.
Yes.
I simply say reverse the process.
That's good.
Slow your life down.
Yes.
Stop living your life based on what you see other people doing. We're in a world of social media now. Everybody's living their life on what they see others doing. Yeah. Eric, I talked about earlier my successes and all these successes.
Yes.
Do you know what I've learned? That success ain't about how much money you have in the bank. It's about how comfortable in the lifestyle that you want to live.
Yes.
And I am just as happy. Just as happy, Eric. Yes. I am just as fulfilled.
Yes.
I can enjoy myself and take as many vacations as I want by not out here trying to run and be like someone else or try to conquer the world.
Yes.
Per se.
Exactly.
So we have to begin to look at money based on our personal lifestyles.
Yes.
And what I did is went back to grandma's values. I went back to grandma's 20, 30%. Yes. I began to look at ratios. I began to say, okay, if I put 40% away and I can spend this, me and my wife, we begin to communicate and talk about money.
Yes.
Do you know how often money's not talked about in the household?
Yes.
Yes. And you know what? I began to understand that my wife has good financial ideas.
Yes.
Even though I was the breadwinner and managed the financial portfolio, she had good financial ideas.
Yes.
She had things like, maybe you shouldn't go hunting and spending all this money.
Yes.
Maybe you shouldn't go trophy fishing and spend all this money. You've got enough clothes in the closet. And once you begin to cut back on those things, you really understand that you really have money to live the life you want to live.
You bring up such a good point for the married men that are on the call, because I'm like I said, I'm always learning from you, and that point right there to be able to say, you know what, our wives do have some good idea and input, because my wife works. I'm the main breadwinner, but my wife works, and I think my wife would agree that there's more input that I could receive from her. There's some things that she knows, things that she's gonna see that I don't see. And there's some different thought processes. I remember when I went and bought this particular car, she was like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, we don't need all that. And that's the other thing I think I've realized on this journey. You may agree, is that the things that we think that we need to have, those nice cars, those nice houses, those nice things, our wives are not always, they're like, I don't necessarily need all of that. We're the problem.
Right, yeah. And, sometimes we get those things thinking that our wife's going to be happy, and I'm doing this for us.
Yes.
Hey, honey, look what I have. And my wife's saying, why did you buy that again? I don't need that. And, my wife is, Alina, great life coach.
Yes.
Her, she does very well in consulting and working with women. And one of the changes and the shifts, Eric, is that, she has her office, and I used to listen. I used to stand in the hallway and listen to some of her private conversations. Yeah. And I said, why don't she have those conversations with me?
Yeah.
I didn't allow her to.
Yeah.
Because I was that married, kind of arrogant husband. I had an ego.
Yes.
Ego was good and bad.
Yes.
But I had one of those egos that, hey, look, I'm bringing in the bread.
Yes.
So, but when it got to where we began to collaborate, I began to listen to her. Not only is it a good financial decision, it's a good personal and relationship decision. And Alina and I began to talk about our future. Where do we? I'm 61. And
we're good, bro.
Hey, man, and feeling good at 61, and no recent or bad health issues, and we begin to look at how do we want our life to go. We have 3 children, we have grandchildren. What's the future look like to us? If you don't have a future for your wealth, you'll make a decision that's unhealthy.
Yes.
You'll make poor financial decisions. And you can either save money and enjoy your latter years, or you can spend your money up front and you can suffer in your latter years. Eric, I didn't know that when I put money away, and Alina and I decided to do 401ks and to do some savings and all of that, I didn't know.
Yes.
I forgot about it. And now I'm understanding that, you remember that money that you put away with Denny's, that money you put away with AT&T, that money you put away at KFC, that money's matured now. Begin to look at it, and now it's like, wow, this system works.
That's the power of compounding of interest and growth and time with money, which is one of the things that we really try to emphasize in the book, is understanding the fact that, listen, if you can play the long game, like you said, just let it sit, don't touch it. Life's hard. We want cars, we want houses, we want different things. we can let it sit.
Right.
Now you're at the age where you can have something there.
Absolutely.
And that's so powerful. And I like also what you said about, pulling your wife in, because the Bible says, if you find a wife, you found favor. And I think that we underappreciate that fact and that point of how God is really trying to help us with money and with other aspects of our life if we would allow the one he's favored to give us some guidance. I'm ministering myself even now because that was just so key what you said there. And even for the folks that are out here to hear, you're 61 now, so you've been on this long journey between Denny's and A&W and EDN and CBN and all these different things to get to where you are now. But you're in a position now where you can enjoy and sit back some. I mean, not sit back all the way, but you can sit back. And I think the young folks need to know that it wouldn't just all of a sudden happen.
It didn't.
It didn't happen. It took application of principles, which your grandmother taught you about saving, and even going back to that when things got tough.
That's correct.
And that's just powerful to hear.
That's correct. Our instruction manuals for the little time that we're here on planet Earth tells us, one of the scriptures in the Bible says that money answers all things.
Yes.
I was fortunate to spend 20 plus years traveling the world and learning under the leadership of Dr. Miles Monroe, of which I understood the kingdom principles of success and understanding the power of a relationship and how that's supposed to work and all those different things. I've been able to train thousands of entrepreneurs and to have everyone looking at you as if you're the only person on the planet that don't have issues.
Yeah.
I began to share my issues. I wanted people to understand that don't look at me as the entrepreneurial training guy that's doing entrepreneur training for, I'm doing financial, workplace development, entrepreneur training for Georgia Power now.
Yes.
I said as the director of supplier development and entrepreneur services for the American Association of Blacks in Energy, looking at the energy sector and in those areas now. But what you have to look at that, Eric, as not as you being the answer to finances,
yes,
but understanding that there's a role that you have to play in all these people's lives on when God blesses you with these finances. Look at the future of that. We walked our daughter into our first grandbaby into SCAD,
yes,
which is a prestigious university, and my wife and I had to be a part of that process with our daughter, and her husband, and how proud it is for us now to look at our children's children and the success of our children's children going into these because of our financial discipline. But most importantly, what Alina and I learned by working together is that we don't really need all of those things.
Yeah.
And so what we have to do, and what you have to do, not just as a CPA, you have to talk about the imperfect part of the CPA.
Yes.
And when I heard your podcast, I'm like, wow, that's dangerous, isn't it? Imperfect CEA. How's that going to go from a marketing standpoint?
Yes.
Because nobody wants a per se imperfect CPA, but wouldn't they want a CPA that talks to them about the imperfection and how to manage that imperfection? Who wants a Jerome that hasn't gone through something?
Exactly.
And I sat here as an individual that has experienced financial financial issues.
Yes.
I've experienced that.
Yes.
But I've also experienced the road to recovery.
Yes.
And the more, and so it doesn't become a repeated process.
Exactly.
You follow what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Once you go through that thing, Eric, and you come out, it becomes a discipline.
Yes.
And I want every listener on your show to know you can come out of it.
Exactly.
Don't sit there. You come out of it. You got to deal with your issue. See, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You got to deal with it right there.
Yes.
I call you all the time and say, Eric, remember all those taxes back then, man? Well, they're still wanting their money today.
Yeah.
This was 2013. Yeah. Well, Jerome, it's not all those taxes.
Yeah.
We got to just start paying those taxes. Exactly. We have to tackle those things.
Exactly. And as we wrap up, Jerome, I think about your book, Maximize Misfortune, right? I read that book, and you were transparent, and you even when you were in your position as the owner of EDN and developing all these entrepreneurs, you're like, look, this is where I came from. And I remember the story when I guess you had hit rock bottom. Had you been let go from your job? What was it when you let go from your job?
They terminated me for convenience.
Yes.
I mean, they terminated really as an at-will employee. I got
you got really low, and your wife helped you through that part. She called you up. Mm-hmm. She said, this is not who you are, and called you into who you were. And I just think that is such a compelling story for the audience. I hope they will. I'm promoting my book, but I think your book, Maximize Misfortune, I think it's important for people to know, just like I talk about being imperfect. Like you said, people need to know that we're not always where we are right now, and even where we are right now, we're never going to be perfect. The only one that's perfect is Christ Jesus, our Lord. There's nobody else. So we strive for perfection. We strive to do those things. But ultimately, we're going to fall, but we thank God for grace, who helps us get back up. So in our parting, Jerome, would you just kind of share whatever parting words you would share with the audience to know about, what they should think about as they're trying to turn this corner with how they handle money, how they manage money, the future of their financial lives and their family and friends? What would you share with them?
Well, they're going to have to manage money just how they manage their lives, and what you talk about was the greatest transition in my life ever. It's who I am today, because when I was an executive at KFC and they terminated me as an at-will employee, when I came back into the marketplace, my goal was not to go back and get a job. My goal was to make money my employee.
Yeah.
That's exactly what my goal was to make money work for me now. Okay. Yes. And it becomes my employee. And I did that. I became an entrepreneur. See, entrepreneurship is so hot now.
Yes.
But nobody wants to go through the process like I took you all through. Nobody understands the process of maximizing misfortune, turning life failures into success, was just to let people know that even the Jerome Edmondsons and the Eric McLaughlins have gotten to points to where life wasn't even important to them.
Yeah.
And there were thoughts of, hey, you know what? I'm tired of this life. I'm just, I don't want to. But at the same time, look, a lot of people don't get a chance to look on the other side of survival.
Yes.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
Some of us have had people around us, like an Alina Edmondson, and that's why we're coming up on 39 years of marriage.
Congratulations.
Who I could look on the other side, and for her to come to me at my lowest point to say these words, do you know who you are? Really? Yes. Which is the name of her book. Who are you really? Rediscovering your true, your life's purpose.
Yes.
I discovered who I am. And once you come into the full knowledge of what God has called you to do,
yes,
there's no financial situation that can stop you. Nothing can hold you back, Eric. So I tell people on your show today, and at the launch of Making Money Your Employee, make your money work for you. Make it your employee. Do your personal plan, your life plan. How much money do you want to spend on eating it? We broke it down to the least common denominator, and we begin to decide that this is a lifestyle that and our lifestyle, which is not the Joneses I'm not trying to be like Eric. And our lifestyle is that we want to leave an inheritance for our children's children.
Yes.
And we have 10 grandchildren. And because that was our thought, as a person thinks, they become.
Yes.
Because we thought that way.
Yes.
Eric, do you know these things will start to happen to you? Do you know that relationships will start coming to you? Do you know that now the lifelong relationships that I've had are now calling me?
Yes.
I was on the call when you pulled up.
Yes.
That was a business call from England on consulting and government contracting because they wrecked out there and they grabbed my information.
Yes.
And they came back to me and said, can you teach us from another country how to get government contracts in your country, because we have opportunities to do business in your country. And I'm sitting in that truck going, chopping cotton.
Yes.
$20.
Yes.
Miss Jessie May Red, Financial Matters, and here we are now.
Here you are now.
And lastly, in my closing, Eric, please, to all listeners, share the good and the bad. Don't go out here on a podcast talking about how great your world is.
Yes.
When you know good and well that this is what our young people need to hear.
Yes.
They need to hear that they're going to fail and it's okay.
Yes.
And they don't have to go to a school and shoot up a school.
Exactly.
They don't have to go, jump in a car and just go out and take their lives. They're going to have shortcomings in life. But there's an opportunity to get back up. Performance is measured by the speed of recovery.
Yes.
The quicker you recover, the more successful you'll become, and then you can go into the next phase of life. And that's what I did, Eric, is that when that thing happened to me and I transitioned from losing my job at KFC and becoming the nation's first Black Denny's franchise owner, losing my job at KFC. A job is a temporary assignment until you come into the full understanding of what God has called you to be.
Yes.
And then going into my money, becoming my employee as an entrepreneur, that was the greatest transition in my life. And so I hope people pick up the book.
Yes.
Read the book. Yeah. But don't just read it. If you want to know who Eric is, read his book.
Yes.
But apply it.
Yes.
And so I was able to apply Dr. Miles Monroe's teaching on leadership and purpose and potential in my life.
Yes.
And I became what I read. And you can do that too.
Jerome, thank you, brother, for coming on the show today. Thank you for dropping so many nuggets of wisdom with the audience on today. I hope that you got something out of today. I'm sure that you did. There were so many nuggets that were dropped by my friend, my mentor, my brother, Jerome Edmondson. Go buy the book, Make More Money Your Employee. It's on Amazon right now. And I look forward to seeing you next week on the Imperfect CPA. See you at the top.
Love it.